there's like Ben, and then my official name on my birth certificate is Benny. Like
Oh.
Bennie, not Y, but Bennie.
Oh.
Okay.
So all my friends. So if you hear anybody call me Benny, it's any friend that I had before I moved out to LA. So
Oh, so Ben was your LA name?
Ben became my LA name because I was like so awesome.
Oh gosh.
Welcome to Herd Talks, the podcast for Marshall students by Marshall students. I'm Luke Jeffrey.
I'm Ashley McClure.
And have you heard Dr. Ing,
Yay!
the return of the king?
The first, second time guest, right?
Yeah. First, second time guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, no food this time, unfortunately. But maybe there'll be some of that in the future.
They told me there would be food. They actually lied to me to get me here.
You got donuts, all right.
Yes.
So I'll count it. Well, thank you again, Dr. Ing, for coming on here. We really appreciate you and your time. I know you're a
Yes,
busy
thank you.
guy, involved in everything.
Everything.
Too busy for you guys. Can't believe I'm slumming it on this podcast right now.
I
No
know,
food.
but- no food. That was our one point that we had, our status point.
Yes.
Anyway, last time we didn't really have much of an introduction for you because we were getting into the food, but this time the episode is about you, man. So you want to give us maybe a little more of an in-depth introduction into who Dr. Ben Ing is?
Yeah.
Man, that was. Now I feel like there's I gotta deliver or something. I mean, do you want where I grew up and all that, or
Whatever you
what
wanna
I'm
give.
what I'm into now,
Just-
or
just
what's
you,
the
dude.
past, present, and future, or So yeah, I'll just go with past, I guess, and then we'll see. I don't know how bored you guys get, but So I grew up here in Huntington, and went to a Catholic school here, an elementary school called Our Lady of Fatima, which if you're from Huntington, you probably know that. Ashley probably knows it, maybe.
Yep.
And then I went to a high school called St. Joe, so it was a local high school, and after that, I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, and when I went to undergrad, I didn't go to Marshall for undergrad. I went to James Madison, but I really didn't know what I wanted to be, so I ended up just majoring in political science because I had a godfather who was a lawyer, and I was like, maybe I'll be a lawyer as well because that's what he did. And back then, I thought there were only two jobs in the world. I thought they were you could be a doctor or you could be a lawyer, and that was it. That's all. As a kid, that's all you know. You don't know there's any other positions or other occupations. So I just I don't want to be around gross sicknesses and see blood and weird gross stuff. And so I knew I didn't want to be a doctor because I just was not good around blood and puke and all that stuff. So
Same.
I was that's not for me. So then I was I guess I talk a lot, so I'll be a lawyer. That probably makes a lot of sense. So I'll do that, and that's how I sort of picked political science. Probably not the best way to pick a major is to know very, very little about the world and base it on the profession that doesn't involve puke. So just by default, didn't like one, like the other one. So I was I guess I'll be a lawyer. So I went to James Madison, which is in Virginia. Got a majored in political science, but minored in business, which is kind of interesting. And I picked up the minor of business just because I was everything is ultimately business. If you get a job, it's ultimately business. So it's it felt like a really good plan B if I didn't become a lawyer. And of course, spoiler alert, I didn't, So it ended up being a good call to have the business minor. And from there, I actually went to law school, still thinking I was going to be a lawyer. Went to Penn State Law School, and that's when I had my 22-year-old midlife crisis, where it was oh my gosh, what am I going to want to be when I grow up? And just our producer Maddie, she just had a 19-year-old midlife crisis? 20. Maddie had a 20-year-old midlife crisis. I had a 22-year-old midlife crisis, and decided I don't want to be a lawyer now that I'm in law school. But it was kind of a bad time to figure that out because it was $60,000 in debt. I was in law school. I'd moved my whole life to Pennsylvania. I was at Penn State, and it's man, what do I want to do now? So I decided to bite the bullet and quit. So actually, I think the term was a leave of absence, if I remember correctly. That was the official term. So I absenced, and I took off, and I finished the whole first year, and just to give it a real shot, like really from day one though, I knew I was like, this isn't really for me, but I decided to give it a whole year just because I didn't feel like if I only given it a day and left, it would have been like, I don't know, wouldn't have like it wouldn't have been an informed decision. So I did the whole year, and then I was like, confirmed, I don't like it. It's like this is not
Yeah.
right career for me. So I went back home. My mom was like, and dad, super mad, super mad. They're like, man, you really like screwed up your life on this one, So they are like, what's your big plan now that you're not going to law school? You must have something that's like better than law school. And I was like, no, I don't have anything. Just like got no plans, like no job. And this again, I've got an undergrad here too. So I mean, like I'm a college graduate at this point, law school dropout or whatever. And so like one of my buddies, he was a high school buddy of mine, and I didn't like know him super well in high school. We were like acquaintances, but we weren't like tight or anything. But just like a kid that I knew, liked him. He's a good guy,
Yeah.
and he's like a nice friend. And like, but he wanted to be an actor, and he was like, I'm moving out to LA to be an actor. And I heard you're a law school dropout, and it's like super expensive to pay rent in LA. Do you want to like be my roommate out there? It's like, you know what? You make a good point. Let's go. So saved like $3,000. Like I got a part-time summer job, it was a full-time summer job, but saved up like $3,000. Packed up all my stuff, and me and him like moved out to LA. Like I said, I barely knew him. He's just a high school acquaintance. Or again, a little bit more than acquaintance, but like about high school buddy.
Yeah.
Knew zero people in LA. Didn't have a job at all, and like just like went out there, and like am I gonna be there for 3 weeks and then run out of $3,000 and have to move back home, or what's gonna happen? So I got out there and I started applying for jobs. Couldn't get any jobs except for like part-time jobs and retail jobs. I worked at a Banana Republic, which is like a clothing store. And
I was thinking actual bananas.
No. Banana Republic.
I was like, oh yeah, you sold bananas. That's cool.
yeah, I sold bananas, and that's how I learned about business.
What a story that'd be.
Yeah, no, there's like it's kind of like you've heard of the Gap, right? So the
Yeah.
Gap is like maybe Old Navy. Have you heard of Old Navy?
Yeah. No,
Okay,
I-
okay,
It's like
okay.
he's not
That one I know.
Have you heard of the Gap, Ashley?
Yes,
Oh, all right.
yeah.
So like the Gap, Old Navy, and Banana Republic are all one company, and they all sell clothes. Banana Republic is probably the more like professional looking one. It's the more older. It's like the older version of Old Navy, but it's the same
Yeah.
company. So, anyways, I worked there and like was really bad at it because I can't fold clothes very well, and I'm like not very fashionable. It's like, but like it paid the bills for like a week or something. And I was also I also had a part-time job like helping out youth soccer because I'm a big soccer guy, and so I made it by for a couple months, and I was like already farther than I thought I'd make it out in LA. And finally, my buddy was like, oh, you're in Hollywood, it's like we're living in LA. You should apply for you should apply for jobs in the industry, like the entertainment industry. It's like cool, so I did, and didn't even know what that really meant. I like TV and I like movies. I watch a ton of movies, or I did back then. I don't as much anymore, but knew quite a bit about like shows and movies, but not necessarily like how they're made or the business behind them.
Yeah.
So it was like not necessarily like, super knowledgeable, or I didn't think I'd necessarily be able to get a job right away. So I sent my resume to every single agency, talent agency and manager in LA, every single one. And like basically like 2 people replied. No, I think like one place replied back to me. That was it. So I went in there and they're like, what do you know about like show business? And I was like, nothing. Like, wow, okay. It's like not very good, But they're like, well, why should we hire you? And I was like, well, I'll work really, really hard, and I, like eventually I'll learn it, and really like I like shows, so I think I'd like show business.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, really in that whole phase of like I got to find something I'm super passionate about, that whole advice you get. So I did that, and I, got the job. Somehow they hired me because I guess I told them I'd work really hard. It was like, I was like, I'll work an insane amount of hours, which I did, and which, like I meant that. So I did that and worked at this talent agency for 3 years, and then after that moved into a bigger talent agency that represents like bigger names, and did that for another 4 or 5 years. and that was like, sort of like my first introduction into like marketing and business. Um, well, actually, I guess my first introduction was like growing up. My mom and dad had a restaurant, so but even back then, I was already interested in business. I just didn't know it. And then my first like real business job, though, like in business, was in show business, working at talent agencies that represented actors, writers, and directors for film and TV. So that got me into the marketing of people and marketing of brands, but specifically like human brands. Like a celebrity's a brand. So I really kind of like fell in love with business there, and kind of was like, oh, that minor paid off. So it's like really pretty cool. Then, and a lot of people are like shocked by this, but like as I got older, I was like 29, or I remember specifically hit another midlife crisis when I was 29, and I loved what I was working on. I loved being in LA, and I loved like working in show business. But I kind of felt like this is like the part about like if you only follow your passion, you end up sort of kind of like maybe potentially having a selfish like life. It's like, so you follow your passion, that's great for you,
Right.
like awesome for you. But like if your job doesn't help anybody, and it doesn't like make an impact on the world, you kind of got like you've got a shallow profession that you're passionate about. So I was like thinking, I was like, well, maybe there's a job that's like I'm passionate about, but I also can like make a difference in the world as well.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'm cutting a lot out in the story, but like because I know like you probably like want to say stuff too, but like so after a while, I kind of grew to realize I was like, the entertainment industry is really neat, but maybe there's like other things out there that could be about business, that could help more people, and ultimately it came down to teaching students business, and that would be fun for me because I love business and thinking about these kinds of things. But I also thought it'd be high impact because now you get to know business and you can like provide for your family and create jobs for multiple other people. And then in doing so, like transform a whole state if you bring more jobs and more businesses into an area. So being kind of like circling back, it's like, so I got back to West Virginia and I realized that if we could teach business and entrepreneurship, and focus on the education of that to our students, and we could kind of like do something really, really big here in West Virginia. So yeah. It's a long answer. Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
could go on
That was
forever.
great. It
Awesome
was
answer.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, this is actually a question I've had for you for a while, and so this is a perfect time to ask it. It flows right into it.
Yeah.
But what was the? You talked about wanting to help people and whatnot, but what made you decide to teach others instead of doing it yourself? Because clearly you're knowledgeable enough to like have these grand businesses that you yourself could go and change the state or whatever. So why do you decide to teach others instead of just making the change directly yourself?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so the first reason is part of it is because of the way I was raised. So a lot of it was like my mom, for Chinese immigrants, which my mom and dad were, the reason why they came over to America is simply because like it's an opportunity to have a better life. They saw West Virginia as a land of opportunity, and which like a lot of people never think of like West Virginia, land of opportunity, but for them it was, and ultimately that's sort of what enabled me to get education was that.
Yeah.
So my mom and dad came here. They did the only thing they could, which is start a Chinese restaurant. Like they didn't have the education, they didn't have the English, they didn't have the network, they didn't have the money to do anything else except for that. They started it here in Huntington. It was successful, and because the people of Huntington bought egg rolls and fried rice and did all that stuff, it allowed me to get education at Catholic schools, at James Madison, at Marshall, at Southern Illinois, get all these degrees, and so for them, the most important thing they called it jumping generations. So they're like, like they always knew that they were never going to make a ton of money because like they knew that they didn't have the education, the English, they didn't have any of those advantages for them to be super, super successful. At least that's the way they thought. I mean, of course, they potentially could have, but they just didn't think they could. So they invested everything in me. They were like, my kid will be the one that is able to jump generations. And the reason that you can jump generations is because of education. That's what they believed. So they saw entrepreneurship as a way to pay the bills and provide food and lodging, but they felt education was the big way you jump generations. So I grew up in an environment that truly believed in entrepreneurship and education.
Yeah.
And then so fast forward to where I am now, and just to more directly answer your question of like I was already inherently like taught that education and entrepreneurship are like the most important things, right? It's like the most fair game, basically. It's like if you're educated and you are like, can provide something of value to people, and like, it doesn't matter if you speak English or not, right? It's like you just like you're good to go. But then the other thing, as I got older and I started thinking about like less about like what I'm just passionate about, but something I'm passionate about that helps people. So if I had a business, I could like have like a couple employees, maybe even a lot of employees, maybe like 100 employees. Like, that's a decent amount, but like, but think of how many students I teach, right? So it's like, if I had, I'm trying to think how many students I teach a semester. I don't know, somewhere between 70, 80 students a semester. So like, if I teach all of them entrepreneurship and education or business and education, then like they all have a chance to like jump generations. And then if they can like, and then if you think about that, like per semester, so if I teach 80 kids a semester, how many semesters am I going to teach my entire life? So you're talking like over time, I'm going to probably teach thousands of kids over time. And like, if they have the power of entrepreneurship and education, they can all jump generations, and West Virginia can jump generations. So ultimately, I guess what it comes down to is like the future is more important than the present to me. If we are going to reverse generational poverty, we have to literally jump generations. So I'm like playing a very long-term game where the most important thing is like making sure that, Ashley and Luke and Maddie, you guys are all going to be like awesome business people. So that way you guys can like jump generations for your family and also for West Virginia as a whole. So another long answer, but there you go.
Hey, long answers are good, man.
Yeah.
That's just super selfless. I mean, just to think about that's.
I do get paid for my job too.
Oh, yeah.
What a bonus.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I think like for me, there's an interesting stat where it's they said that like all you really need in terms of like how much do you need to be happy, like money, like how many dollars do you need to be? Do you know what this is? Do you know how much it is?
70,000.
70,000.
My dad has talked about this for the past 2 months.
Oh.
So like research, I guess, has shown that like $70,000 is like most people need to like feel like they're not like struggling. It's like yeah, I mean you're not like loaded or anything, but like you can like do nice things and you're not like constantly stressed about money. But supposedly if you can get to 70,000, that's where the number is. And and I think for me like and I'm sure there's like certain people would say differently, but like I think for me like that's makes sense. And like I was like kind of always thinking like, all right, if I'm like over that should be fine. And as long as I'm making an impact, that's the most important thing. So definitely impact is more important than salary. But that said, I never necessarily wanted to like be under 70,000, I guess. I mean, just because like then it's like probably like struggle, maybe like it's a little bit like worried about money a lot and have like a lot of stresses. So
it's hard to take care of others too if you can't take care of yourself first.
Yeah,
so your impact is lessened if you're not taken care of.
Yeah, it's hard to focus on somebody else if like you're like struggling yourself. Yeah, 100%. So I definitely make enough where I feel like I'm happy, in terms of it provides a lifestyle that I need, but allows me to focus on what's truly important and my true goals in life. Yeah, so definitely like salary was never a goal and still is not a goal. It was just like how can I have enough to be able to do what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said that your parents had a restaurant. What was the restaurant's name?
So it's called Mings. So my last name is Ing. My dad's name is Ming. So people are like, it rhymes, Ming Ing. People love that. People love that. It was like Ming Ing. Yeah. So it's called. And people, if I walk around town, people are like Little Ming. So like I'm still not as famous as my dad, but
so your dad's first name was Ming?
Yeah.
So he was Ming Ing.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I like that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, I'd like to be named like Luke Duke or something. Like, I don't know. Like that could be cool.
Luke Duke was a Duke of Hazzard.
Oh yeah, he was.
Like that exists.
Bo and Luke Duke. Yeah, and it's cool.
Like
Luke
people might have to look that up on Netflix because I'm sure nobody your age, like very few
I
people
love
your
Dukes
age.
of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard is like freaking awesome.
I grew up Dukes of Hazzards, Andy Griffith. There's another one. I can't remember the name of it though.
Yeah.
But those types of shows. Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke was a big one.
You like some
when I
old
was a-
stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
an old soul at
But that's
heart.
Luke Duke right there, man.
Right,
There
yeah.
you go.
So Ing Ming, he like
Ming Ying.
Ming.
Ming Ing, not Ing Ming. Yeah, I had it backward. Ming Ing. That is.
So Ashley,
That is awesome.
you'd have like like what would it be? It'd be
I don't
like,
even know. I'm scared what's gonna come out of his mouth.
I don't know. It might have to be shortened because like I feel like the one syllable has a punch effect. So like Ash Bash. or something. Like,
Is that our nicknames now?
Ash Bash.
Yeah, like Ming Ying, Luke Duke, Ash Bash. I like it.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
good.
I can roll with it.
Oh gosh,
I
but
guess-
the reason why I was asking
Yeah,
that is
sorry.
because my mom was talking about Mings the other day, and I was like, Mings, I think that was my professor's parents. Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, so we were talking about. And apparently, I was at Mings, but I was like in a stroller.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was there at one point.
yeah, they
Just
Just don't
retired.
remember.
Yeah, that's about right. They retired about like 10, 12 years ago. So, yeah, you probably just been a kid last
Yeah.
time you were there.
Yep.
See, if someone told me about Mings and like, I'd have been like, huh, that sounds a lot like Dr. Ing. But I'd be like, it's too close, so it can't be it. So I would have never thought about it. I would have been like, no, that's too coincidental. But
Yes.
That'd be pretty funny, yeah. Like what if it was called like Dr. Mings?
Dr.
yeah,
Mings.
see that, like,
Well, because you always do call me like Dr. Ing, right?
I
Or do you
do,
call me
yeah.
And then do you
Dr.
say the same thing?
I usually just say Ben. Now I
that's
feel
what I
bad.
thought. I thought we were on a first name basis.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought you were always
I
calling
guess
me Ben.
I
Yeah.
haven't made it that far yet. I don't know.
It's the Jaeger scholar in you, man.
Yes,
it's just like
yes,
he's a very
we're-
formal Jaeger
yes.
scholar.
I'll have
He's
to.
too smart to like call me by our first name.
No.
He's
I
like,
wouldn't
gotta be
call it
proper.
smart. I just think I feel like it feels awkward to me. I had teachers in school who were family members,
Yeah,
like first cousins, and I would still call them Mr. or Mrs.
right.
Whatever. Even outside of class. After I had them in class, I could only call them by Mr. or Mrs. And I'd see them at like a family reunion. And I just could not bring myself to do it.
I'm the same way.
Well, I'll tell you this
yeah.
though. Whenever I was talking to my advisor to go talk to other people about trying to find my major, he mentioned you as Ben. He never said you're like Dr. Eng, and I was like, so what's his name? So I just knew it was Ben. That's
Yeah.
all I knew.
Well, there was yeah. So there's like Ben, and then my official name on my birth certificate is Benny. Like
Oh.
Bennie, not Y, but Bennie.
Oh.
Okay.
So all my friends. So if you hear anybody call me Benny, it's any friend that I had before I moved out to LA. So
Oh, so Ben was your LA name?
Ben became my LA name because I was like so awesome.
Oh, gosh.
I was like, no, I'll tell you the reason why. It wasn't just because I thought it was a more awesome name. Although it is. No, I don't know what it is. I think Benny's actually, I don't know. But anyways, so the agency I worked at, they had there was only like 5 people in the office. I was one of the 5. And one of the people that owned the company was like a partner. His name was Denny. So
Oh.
he had like tons of like calls that were like far more important than the ones I should be getting because it was like it was his company, and I would get his calls and they'd be like, no, I want Denny, not Benny, and I'm like, oh crap. So he came over literally the first week and was like, you're gonna have to change your name. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I don't mind. I was like,
Oh
nobody
my
knows me.
gosh,
Not
you
like
gotta change your name.
Not officially
Yeah.
or anything, but just at the business, right? He's like, can you go by something else, basically? So it was like, I was like, yeah, I'll just go by Ben.
You should have said
So Ben was created then.
counter offer. I just become a partner with you. Denny and Benny, talent agency.
Oh.
Luke Duke, Ming Ing, Denny and Benny. It's like everything's got a rhyme.
Yes.
But it was like so that was when Ben got created, and then I sort of kept that just because it was easier to say, and it was like it just started writing it out and just got used to it. But then I came back when I moved back here to like Huntington. That's when people were like Benny, and it's like, oh crap, that's right. People still call me that. So now, but I now that I'm back here, more people know me. Well, I don't know. It's probably even now because there's so many students that know me. But like, there's far more people in the community that I grew up with than there were faculty members that that I'm friends with here. So far more people knew me as Benny when I moved back than Ben. But but I think I call myself Ben at this point. So I think more students and like it's starting to take over a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you do hear it Benny, it's like somebody that probably knew me when I was like in high school or
Huh,
before
yeah,
that.
I haven't heard anyone call
Yeah.
you Benny.
Yeah. But I guarantee if we stepped out if we just stepped 1 foot off campus, it'd be all Benny.
Really?
Yes.
I might have
Wow.
to stop calling you Dr. Ing just so I can call you Benny. Maybe. I'll have
That's
to
a
think about
big
that
step to first name basis. That's past Ben.
Well, that'd be kind of probably weird for you though, right? Because
It
you
would
probably don't
be,
even
yeah.
see that, right?
I,
So
I
weird.
wouldn't be able to bring myself to say
Now
that.
you see
but-
Benny in the hallway. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely weird. Like my soccer coach too. Like, just my whole life it was always Coach Hood, and now it's like, it's like no, call me Sam. I'm like, it's weird even now. Like
Yeah.
I've been like, now known this like my coach for freaking 40 years, and I still like, don't want to call him like
Yeah.
Sam. I was like, no, you're Coach.
Yeah, like,
so
Coach
yeah,
no.
yeah, it's like kind of like it's hard to make that transition. So.
Mhm.
Well, I guess back to our regularly scheduled program. We'll get back on topic a little bit. One thing that we have a little bit of, I guess, insider information to that you're doing within the school
Yeah.
to make these big changes and affect these students that I think is super interesting is the startup class. You want to give
Yeah.
a little rundown on what that is?
Yeah, so the startup class has evolved and it's turned into the Brad Smith Incubator. So the Brad
What a
Smith,
name.
It's my man.
yeah, yeah. So it's just like the name implies, incubator. The idea is, we help students to have ideas for business, turn those businesses into reality. So the class is really interesting, where it sort of isn't just a one semester class. I mean, it is a one semester class, but it rolls every single semester. So basically, ideally, if you come in as a freshman and you're part of the incubator, then like basically you could stay all 4 years in that same, you would just get like 3 credits every semester, just like fall, spring, and for like 8 straight years or 8 straight semesters, 4 straight years. And basically, we would help you as a class, you get credit hours for this. So you get time to do it. Start your business. And it's not just me, but we have, as part of my center, we have this thing called Entrepreneurs in Residence, which are experts at certain areas of business. So like they'll help you, if you have an app idea, they'll help you code the app. If you have like an idea that would help the community, and they're not necessarily like regular businesses that are all about money, but they're more about like helping like a Tom's concept or something like it's called like social entrepreneurship. So we have 2 social entrepreneurship experts. So we have all these different experts in addition to what I bring to the table, and my colleague Paige Leonard brings to the table to help students get their idea up and running. So I mean, you guys are going to hopefully be part of it next. Hopefully you guys
I'm
will have
excited.
yeah. So like hopefully you guys will have an idea that you guys can bring to the incubator. We'll help you start it basically. But the goal is to start the business, not just like here's a bunch of PowerPoint slides of an awesome idea that I'm never going to do. It's like let's go do this thing. Like so it's about like taking shots, starting the business, and starting it in a smart way. I'm not saying like go to the bank and get $100,000 loan and start the business. I mean like test out in a really, really small, scrappy way your idea to see if customers actually like it. And we have a whole system for it called design thinking, which will allow you to be able to test your ideas in a small, scrappy way, but see if there's actual demand for it. And if there is, then continue to build it. So that's what the incubator is all about. Yeah.
So how did the original idea for the class now incubator come to be? Like, where did the idea for the ideas?
So all the best ideas come from noticing important problems. So the first problem that we saw was there's not a lot of game-changing businesses in West Virginia. Like where's our Facebook? Where's our Uber? And I just like, how come like we don't have one? And is it like there's something special about Silicon Valley why they get to have them, we don't get to have them? Like what's the difference? And of course, knowing Brad, Brad Smith is somebody that I've known for a while, and I had a former student who had been working at Intuit, and together they showed me from Intuit this system called design thinking, which helps you turn problems into opportunities. So how do you take a problem and turn it basically into a business? Is one application for design thinking. So like that was really just the mindset of when we first started was like, okay, like if West Virginia is going to be successful in the future and really change the game, then we believe that like entrepreneurship is the way to do it, and education are the ways to do it. So we looked at like, okay, how might we go about doing this? And like one of the ideas was one of the things that we did was we looked at like what are the barriers that students have when it comes to starting a business. And one of the first barriers was just, well, they don't know how to do it. So that's the education part, right? So that one's not too hard to solve because that's like what I do every day. But then we looked at other things like, well, what else? What are some other barriers? And one that we found was students are really don't have a lot of time. Like, and a lot of it's for multiple reasons. Like, so I mean, a lot of times our students are from economically disadvantaged areas, so they have to have like multiple jobs. Sometimes they'll have to have like 2 jobs. Sometimes they'll have a full-time job, or at the very least, have a part-time job. So like they don't really have like the time to be able to start the business. So we were like, well, what if we created a class where they got to start the business in the class? So that was one barrier that we were like, the incubator could solve that. The other barrier was we noticed was like, this tended to happen a lot with business students. Business students would have all these awesome PowerPoint slides of this awesome business, but like could not make the thing that's in there, right? So it's like it always stopped at the presentation. It was like, awesome presentation. This business would be terrific if you knew how to build it,
Yeah.
And of course, you could always hire somebody to build it or whatever. But like,
Shark Tank.
yeah, it's just like you just need. You would need capital at that point. You need a partner, and most of the times it was just too big of a gap for students to like cross that bridge to like making the thing that they presented. So we were kind of thinking, well, what if we had an incubator class that wasn't just limited to business majors or entrepreneurship majors, but what if they were like, this was a class that like attracted majors from all sorts of different disciplines and across Marshall. So we'd have engineers in there. We'd have all these different makers in addition to just the business students, and figured, well, let's create this kind of classroom environment. It's not even a classroom environment, really. It's just like, because there's no real tests in it. It's just like get closer and closer to like building your idea every week. Get closer and closer to like launching your idea. That's literally the class. But in the meantime, we have these experts that'll help you, and we have dedicated time that'll be there for you, and the students in your class potentially would be able to partner with you to build the thing, right? So because there might be an engineer in there, there might be, a biology person who can grow the crops, or I don't know. There's all sorts of things that they can do, right? So, but yeah, so we just kind of wanted to create an environment that was stretched across all the different majors, and eliminate as many possible barriers as we could think of that would stop a student from starting the next Facebook.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's awesome.
We need a West Virginia Facebook.
A West Virginia
Imagine
Facebook.
what that would be like.
I know.
Just West Virginia on one Facebook.
Oh no.
Be nuts.
Well, it started with just Harvard, right? So like I don't know, like if you know that, but Mark Zuckerberg, who created Facebook, created that in his Harvard dorm. He was a student. He was a freshman or a sophomore when he did it, and he only created it for Harvard people. And then he grew it, and he like limited to only Ivy League, and then he limited to only colleges. You had to have an EDU, and then he like released out to the world. So he actually, it's actually what you want to do when you start a business is, you actually want to focus really, really narrowly on one customer group that desperately has the problem that you're seeking to solve, and just focus on nailing it with them first. And then if you can nail it with them first, then you can actually scale it out to like all these other markets. So that's what he did. He nailed it first with Harvard, and then he scaled it out.
I didn't know that.
It's one of the ways, yeah. Well, there you go. That's what you learn next semester.
Yeah.
That's my aha moment for the day.
Uh-huh.
So sounds like to me that your parents had it right from the beginning. Education, entrepreneurship, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're pounding into other kids.
Definitely a little biased, but I think they had it right, and I really think that that's the only way that like West Virginia is going to like reverse course, like population decline is really staggering, and like, it's what can change it, like what can we do to change generational poverty? It's a hard question. But I do think it's entrepreneurship and education. But again, super biased. I mean, I'm sure if you ask somebody else, they'd say something else, but that's what I believe.
So from law school dropout to professor teaching others the principles they taught you, do you think that they would consider you a success now, recovered from your dropout story?
They definitely were super proud once I started, like I came back and got my master's, and that was a big part of like coming back to get my MBA, to get my PhD, was, I mean, obviously I wanted it for my own self and career, but definitely wanted it for them too because they were not happy when I dropped out of law
Oh, I'm
school.
sure. I couldn't even imagine.
That was not good times. Yeah, but yeah, 100%. They're really happy with like the level of education because I mean I'm still in college, right? So I mean that's the one great thing about being a professor is you're a forever student. You know, like I get to learn new things all the time. I get to learn things from you guys. I get to learn things from other professors, and you know, I get to be a perpetual student forever. So yeah, I think they love it. They love that I'm a professor, and that was the main thing. Like my mom and dad, you know, when they started the restaurant, people always asked like, "Hey, are you going to take over? Is Benny?" Just Dr. Ng, whatever, is going to take over Mings. You know, they'd always ask, are you going to take over for Ming? And I was like, and I actually wouldn't mind. I think it's kind of cool. I like cooking and all that stuff. I like eating, obviously. We talked about this last time.
Yeah.
But my dad always said no. He'd always cut them off. He'd say, no, Ben and Benny will never take over for Mings. And they're like, why? You know, and he's like, because I want him to work with his head, not with his hands. So that was his whole goal. It was like work with your head, not with your hands. Be smart, you know, and like, you know, he just kind of felt that like, you know, like his job running a restaurant, being the back of the cook, it's like very physically demanding. You know, it'll put a toll on your body, and he just didn't want that for me. He wanted something where I could use my mind, and as opposed to like grinding out like a bad back and a bad shoulder and all that kind of stuff that you get with like, you know, very difficult physical labor jobs. So that's what he always wanted.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
You to eat
that's
the
so
food,
sweet,
not cook
though. Yeah.
It is sweet. Very, I mean, what a story, man. But yeah,
I know. I'm like,
It's-
yeah.
don't know exactly where to go from that. That's
I
like
mean, that's like a
sentimental, man.
good-
Like
yeah.
emotional, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a good, you know, ending.
Right.
It's a sweet
I
ending.
feel like we just came out of a movie.
Yeah.
The li-
It was a
the
roller
life of-
coaster.
The life of Ing.
The life of Ing.
The life of Ing.
Yeah.
There you go. The sequel to Ming Ing.
We need to call up your actor buddy, right?
Yes,
Yep.
he can
Get
play.
him in here, and then
Yes.
we can shoot it.
He
in
can
the
play Luke
iCenter.
Jeffrey.
yeah.
We'll rename it to Luke Duke, yeah. And then people will be super confused. We're like, we're watching the Dukes of Hazzard?
Like, what is this?
I think that's the next iCenter project. I'll see you all tomorrow morning for planning.
There you go.
Yes, 5 a.m. We're going.
There we
Alright,
go.
Sharp. Well, thank you, Dr. Ing, again for taking the time to join us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you
I'm
so
sure
much.
We'll have you on here multiple times in the future. You're such a good guest, man. You know.
Whenever you need a guest, Ing will fill in, you know?
Yep.
Like, I'll be a fill-in for you.
It'll even be 5 minutes early if there's food.
Yeah, if there's food, I'm definitely coming.
We'll,
Yeah,
we'll
I'm in.
advertise it every time.
You have
We'll
to
get
bribe them to come.
McNuggets. Get me some McNuggets.
McNuggets.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely have you on for something else. And so, again, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. It was an awesome discussion.
Yeah.
To everyone else, thank you for watching. We have more content coming out this summer later on, and then we'll start back up season 2 in the fall. Stay tuned for that. We have lots of stuff changing that Ing is actually helping us hammer out right now. So he's our big mastermind
Yeah,
out here.
mastermind.
Our Shark Tank. We pitch it to him, and he says, you know, whatever.
Yep. Yes or no.
If it'll work or not, or if it's stupid. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's
Only
ever,
two options.
Yeah.
Only two. No
Does
in
it-
between.
Does it work or is it stupid?
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you all, and follow us on whatever you're watching or listening to this on. You can find it in the descriptions below. Go check out all of our social medias to make sure there's nothing you haven't heard on campus.
See you soon.
I wonder what Brad's name would be.
Brad's name.
Brad Chad? Brad Rad? Brad Rad?
Bad Rad. I like that.
Bad
Rad
Rad.
Brad.
Oh,
Brad.
Brad,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brad Brad. That's it.
Good.
In the 90s, you would have loved that. Like, this is the coolest name in the 90s.
Coolest name ever.
Definitely. Rad Brad.
Oh gosh.